Hi, I'm Jenny Rosencrantz with the University of Maryland Extension, and it's September. September can be hot. It can be cool, sort of like toward the end of September, but because it's hot, we're going to talk about shade and shade trees. Trees to look for that will do really well for you, and trees maybe you should sort of stay away from a little bit. But we're also going to cover beautiful things that like to live under the shade of the trees, including this gorgeous variegated liriope, and I have some Solomon seal, and then we have a plant that actually has pretty flowers in the winter. So join us for this shady conversation coming up next right here on Pack 14. Shade is a wonderful thing, especially in the heat of summertime. Now there's different types of trees that give different types of shade. This is a gorgeous maple, and maples have the tendency to have all their leaves kind of like all together, so they don't top over like this, but they'll have a leaf here, another leaf here. So when you look up into the sky under a maple, you don't see that much sky. You see lots and lots of green, which is good. So that means that the shade of a maple is very, very, very dense. It is very cooling, which is nice too. Why is it so cool under the shade of a maple or under a shade of a tree? Okay, first of all, it's because trees are always leaking a little bit of water. On the underside of every leaf, there are little teeny holes. They're called stomates. These little holes allow water to leak out. Why does the tree do that? Well, it's sort of physics when you think about it. If the leaves are leaking water, that means that the water is going out of the leaves. But it also gives the plant a chance to pull more water up through the roots. So that way you have a continuous cycle of water being pulled up by the roots, water and nutrients being pulled up by the roots. Very important. And then the plant gets to use all the nutrients, gets to take the water to the whole part of the tree. And then when the water is done all it's supposed to do for the tree, then it can slowly, gradually, drop by drop, leak out of the tree by the leaves. Okay, so that being said, as there's always a light mist here, we don't see it, we don't even hear it, but because that water evaporates, that evaporation actually cools us down. So if you're in the middle of a field and it's like 100 degrees outside, here with our high humidity, it feels hotter than 100, right? So if you're under an awning, it feels a little cooler. But if you're under the shade of a tree, it is always at least 20 degrees cooler under the shade of a tree. That's really important, especially if you want to have a patio or something like that. But even more important, trees are also really good at shading your house. And by having your house shaded, that will cool your house. So you want to make sure that it is in the right spot. So if you're looking at your house, it doesn't matter which direction your house is facing, but you want to have the shade trees either on the south or the west. Most important would probably be southwest, because that would shade most of the house, and that would keep your house cooler, especially during the hottest part of the day, which is from 12 o'clock noon to about 5 o'clock in the evening. And that's when the sun is on the south and southwest and west. So you want to kind of keep that in mind. You want to have a tree that's going to be tall enough for your house, but not so tall that it overpowers the house. If you have a single-story house, you can have a smaller sized tree. Something like a crepe myrtle that only gets to be 30 feet high. That can still throw a lot of shade. If you have a two-story house, and oak and maples are really good. Keep in mind though, remember all these trees have roots. Maple trees have roots that are actually above the ground. So what we've done here is we've gone ahead and added mulch. So you can't really see the roots. Well, here's some roots right here, which I think are pretty cool. But you cannot see the roots that are above ground because they're covered by the mulch. They can still breathe, which is important. And also, they're not cut by me riding the lawnmower or pushing the lawnmower over those roots. The other thing is if I have these very, very strong roots, I don't want these roots to go into the foundation of my house. So I always tell people, keep in mind how tall the tree gets, but also look at how wide the tree gets when it's mature. And realize that the roots will actually go beyond that, a good 15, 20 feet beyond that. So this tree can eventually get to be 40 feet wide. So I'm making sure that this is 40 feet away because if it's 40 feet wide, it's 20 feet on either side, right? If I keep it 40 feet away, then I know that the roots are not going to get into the foundation. That's really important because you don't want the beautiful shade tree that you absolutely love doing damage to your house. You also don't want to have the shade tree over top of the roof itself, because that can actually have, like, I guess they call it like a double drip. So when you have the rain beats down on your roof. If it's on the leaves and it heats the leaves, then the leaves drop the water on it too. So it's twice as much work, or twice as much weight, I guess, on it. Anyways, it's more damaging to your shingles. So make sure that the shade tree is away from the house, but gives you all the shade you want. That's really important. So let's go ahead and take a look at some other trees that will give you a different kind of shade. You know, there's so many beautiful trees out there to go ahead and choose. This is an oak. I love oaks. There's a couple oaks that are excellent to use. This one is good, but it's not good near a driveway or near a patio. This is called a pin oak, and that means that the leaves have little points, and the points look like little edges of a pin, very, very sharp points. They don't feel sharp, but that distinguishes it from other oaks. Now, the willow oak is wonderful because it has very tiny leaves, and the leaves actually blow away, which is nice. The reason why I don't want to have a pin oak near a driveway or really close to a patio is that the bottom leaves or branches are actually down like this. The middle ones are like this, and the upper ones are like this. So because this is near a driveway, we've had to limit up considerably. That's a constant thing that we do. But what I really love about the oaks is that they are so strong. They spend their first years, the first 3 years an oak lives, is really going ahead and getting a wonderful root system. You can tell a good root system when you take a look at the root flares. That's what these are right here, root flares. And you always want to see the root flares because they'll show you that the plant is planted at the right depth. And these help hold the tree during storms, during, like, whether it's a snowstorm or even a hurricane. They can handle quite a lot of wind simply because they have such an excellent root system. They actually develop the root system because in nature you could have forest fires, and a forest fire may burn this down, but the root system is still there, and the root system will continue to go ahead and grow like crazy, which is awesome. The other neat thing about this, I want to show this to you guys because not everybody understands. This is covered with like little patches of lichen. So you see this little one right here, and here's one right here. And what they are, lichen is a combination of a fungus, which gives it its funny little flaky shape and very kind of little frills. But it's kind of a gray-green, and that's because algae, which works with the fungus, algae is actually pulling in the sunlight and has chlorophyll in it, which is why it's kind of a gray-green color. So this sits on the bark. It does not kill the tree. It doesn't harm the tree in any way. But people usually notice lichen when a tree is starting to die back, and they're like, oh no, I've lost my tree. Well, no, these guys grow there all the time. And it's basically, it's a sign of good air quality. So they probably don't have this where people are polluting the air an awful lot. Here where we are in Maryland, this area right here, gorgeous air quality. Little hot, little muggy, but really gorgeous air quality. So this oak is wonderful, and like I said, it gives good shade. This one also gets to be about 60 to 80 feet high and about 40 to 50 feet wide. So it does need to be a little further away from the house. But these roots, even though you see these root flares, the roots do not stay above ground. So this one is not bad to have near a place where you're going to be walking or mowing the grass, which is really good. Now, sometimes you're going to see some trees that are giving you problems. I want to show you a tree that we have problems with, and I want to explain what to look for. So this is one of the first trees that we planted, and we really love it. It is a Crimson King Norway maple. Now, the straight Norway maple is a tree that is considered an invasive tree. The Crimson King has never given seeds, so I don't think that this is actually an invasive, but you still want to go ahead and be always aware. If you plant a plant that might be on the borderline, you have to be a responsible plant owner and keep an eye on this one. But this one now is starting to exhibit some signs of stress. So last year in July, that would be 2020, in July, we had 28 days of plus 90-degree temperatures and no rain. That stresses these trees out. This is a Norway maple, meaning it likes to be a little cooler climate. So, and then we had a lot of rain. So it either had the roots in the water too much or it was too hot. So the reason why I say this is showing signs of stress is that if you look at the canopy of the tree where all the leaves are, if you stand back and just look at all the leaves, you can see that there's a lot less leaves on this tree now. So every year it's losing more and more branches. And as the branches die, that means that the leaves don't live on those branches. When a tree loses at least 30% of the beautiful foliage that you have, it's time to start saving your pennies and calling an arborist and have the tree removed. Now, when I say call an arborist, I don't want you to just call somebody who says, I'll take that out for you, no big deal. You want to have a licensed and insured arborist, somebody who's trained and knows what they're doing. Why would you spend the extra money? Oh, let me tell you why. Okay, first of all, if they're licensed and insured, that means when they come in to set up, they will set up all the precautions. They'll make sure that all the things have to be moved away that need to be moved away. They will look at the plant. They will go ahead and assess the best way to take it down safely. If there's any oops, like for instance, the branch falls down and hits like the ground and leaves a divot, they'll take care of that. They won't allow a branch to come down on somebody's car or somebody's dog or, for God forbid, a person. But somebody who's not licensed and insured, they don't care. They don't care. They're doing it for the money. They're just going to go ahead and cut the tree down and get up and move. If they do something wrong, they will just pack everything up and you will never see them again. A licensed and insured arborist will go ahead and take care of absolutely everything. And if something doesn't turn out the way you want it to, you can go ahead and call them and say, look, you need to come and take care of this. So they can go ahead and cut it down and leave the wood for you. They can cut it down and take the wood with them. They could cut it down and actually go ahead and grind the root system down below the ground. Why do they do that? Well, being a maple, this has got a decent root system, even though it's slightly compromised, obviously. So with a maple, as soon as you cut down the tree, the maple goes, well, my root system says I need leaves, and it's going to send out suckers. So if they go ahead and grind the top of the trunk down at least 6 inches, they're taking it below the ground, and that means that it's not going to send up anything, and it eliminates the problem for you. Should you plant another tree right on top of it? No, because it takes a long time for those roots to decay. And you should never plant a shade tree of the same species near where another tree is. And that's one reason why we have multiple trees. We have the sugar maple, we have the oak, and we have this Norway maple. And they're all different species of trees. And you should always try to do that. So if one has an issue, then the others will not. That's really good. I want to share another tree with you. This is one I think is fun. This one gives what they call dappled shade. And the leaves are so teeny tiny that they just blow away. I never have to rake them. So come on, join me for this one. Okay, this tree is called a thornless honey locust. Now, there's a lot of honey locusts out there. The native honey locust has thorns. It has nasty thorns. Don't buy that. That becomes, actually it becomes a danger for us. It becomes very dangerous for us. But the thornless honey locusts are wonderful. Now this one is, I just love this because it's very, very light shade. If you look down on the ground, you can see it's like a dappled shade, which I think is kind of fun. So you can see some sunlight here. You can see a whole bunch of little teeny leaflets also. So right here, this is the actual leaf. And so here's where the leaf is attached to the tree. So this is the whole leaf. So here are some little leaflet branches. And these little guys right here, these are the actual leaflets. Whole thing is a leaf. These little guys are the leaflets. So when these dry off, like this one's starting to turn yellow, it pouts off and blows away. I love it. So this one you don't have to worry about raking under. It just blows everywhere, which I think is wonderful. This one is not going to be as tall or as broad. It's more open and airy. And I think that that also adds a lot of light shade. So this would be good like over a patio or near some cars, because it's not going to give you any problems. Now, we have heard in the background some of the dog day cicadas, and I just want to show you, here is the little casing of the dog day cicada. This is the what was the exoskeleton, and there is a slit right in the back. When he got out of the soil and came here, he or she latched onto this bark right here, and then they came out. When they came out, they actually had wings, and they were able to go ahead and do their singing. And so we don't have the 17 and the 13-year cicadas. I'm glad we don't, but we do have the dog day cicadas, and they do sing, but not as loud and not as crazy as the 17-year ones. So always enjoy that. That's really good. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at some plants that love the shade. One of my favorite trees that needs shade is this beautiful Japanese cutleaf maple. I just love it. I love the fact that it looks like a waterfall. The foliage is called the cutleaf Japanese maple because it has the same type of maple leaf, but where you have the veins, the entire plant is cut all the way there. So it has the same amount of points that a regular maple has, and it's called a palmate because it looks like the palm of your hand, but they're all so delicate and almost lace-like. And it has little bits of purple and red on them. The little stem right here, the petiole, is a bright red also. And then in the fall, this turns a beautiful scarlet color. The reason why it needs the shade is that these leaves are very, very delicate. And if it's out in the full sun, they will actually burn. It's like somebody who has very, very fair skin will sunburn quicker than somebody who maybe has an Italian in their bloodstream, and they tan better. So this one is just gorgeous, and it's thriving here in the shade, which is really good. So there's a lot of other plants that do really well. One of them I'll show you is this beautiful annual. This is what they call a dragonwing begonia. I love the fact that it's got these gorgeous shiny leaves and these beautiful red flowers that just sort of pop against the green. Very, very pretty. This is an annual, so this needs to be replanted every single year. On the other hand, right beside this is a hosta. So this little guy right here is a type of hosta that is called the ghost. The foliage is almost white, and then as it matures, it turns a darker green. So the longer it stays a green, the better it is, because it can actually get more nutrients, but they're wonderful. They are. Let me show you some other really cool plants that we have. Now the Lenten Rose is a wonderful plant right here that does such a beautiful job in the shade. The leaves are a dark, rich green. This is actually an evergreen plant, so even in the wintertime, this is going to look absolutely spectacular. The neat thing about the Lenten Rose is it blooms like in February, March, and sometimes the flowers and the sepals that basically hold the flowers stay on almost through the summertime. So this is actually gorgeous. So I do love this. And notice how the hosta right beside me has been nibbled by the deer, but they will never touch the Lenten Rose. So it's worthwhile, if you're going to have shade-loving plants, have different varieties, because if all I had was hosta, I would have nothing green under here. So let me show you another one that's right up here. This is a type of coral bells, and this is called Autumn Bride. The foliage is soft and fuzzy and large, and these are the flowers. So this blooms in the late summer and into the fall, which is really cool. Now over here, this is also a coral bell, so is that, and so is that. So these are all different types of coral bells, very, very small foliage. This one has got a beautiful, like a silver undertone. It bloomed early in the springtime. So it has silver here. The new foliage is kind of almost a grape color first, and then it gets more green as it grows. And the same thing for this one right over here. Has some of the smaller reddish undertones, and then Dale Strain is almost all green. So these all do really, really well in the shade and give you color and texture. This is another wonderful, wonderful shade-loving ground cover, and it gets to be about 1.5 feet tall. The foliage is this wonderful variegated green color. This is called variegated Solomon seal. And it takes a lot of abuse under the shade of things like maple trees. Maples are the type of plants that kind of fight for all of the sunlight, but they also fight for all the moisture. So any type of ground cover that thrives here has got to be able to share the moisture and the nutrients with these maples. And this variegated Solomon seal has become a huge mass, which is really wonderful. So I just think, you know, if you have a troublesome area and you still want to have a ground cover, this is not nibbled by deer, and it is absolutely, I think, exquisite. Now this one, like the hostas, does become deciduous, meaning the leaves fall off in the fall. And that lets you go ahead and clean up the whole garden and enjoy just the Lenten roses, because the Lenten roses are gorgeous all through the winter as well. So thank you for joining me for all the cool ideas about shade, the trees that provide the shade, and the plants that love to live under the shade, that you can actually sit at a little table and chair under the shade too. And thank you for joining us on Delmarva Gardens right here on Pack 14.